My name is Lucy Walker. I'm 29 years old. And on Christmas morning, my mother slapped me because I asked why my younger sister had received nearly $15,000 in gifts while I had been given nothing. 3 weeks earlier, Mom had sent a message to our family group chat saying, "No presents this year. We're focusing on gratitude, not material things." I believed her. I even transferred $800 to cover Christmas dinner, because she claimed Dad's retirement account had been temporarily frozen. Then my sister began opening boxes. First came a brand new iPhone, then a $6,000 designer handbag. Finally, she opened a velvet case containing a diamond ring large enough to catch the light from every window in the room. She laughed, filmed herself crying, and told her followers she had the most generous family in Virginia. I sat beside the tree with an empty lap. When the final box was opened, I looked at my mother and asked, "What about me?" Her smile vanished. "You're almost 30, she said. Stop embarrassing yourself." I reminded her that I had paid for dinner and helped cover the house, but the slap came so quickly that my head turned sideways. My father stared into his coffee. My sister kept recording. Nobody defended me. I stood up, opened my phone, and saw the notification I had scheduled for Christmas morning. Final audit package ready for release. My mother believed she had humiliated the daughter who still needed her approval. She had forgotten that I was also the woman whose money, credit, signature, and silence were supporting their entire lifestyle. Before I tell you what happened after I pressed that button, tell me where you're watching from and what the weather is like there. I want to know just how far this Christmas story can travel. For most of my childhood, my mother described my sister as the light of the family and me as the dependable one. Those words sounded harmless until I understood what they meant. Madison was allowed to shine. I was expected to keep the electricity running. She was 3 years younger than me, charming enough to make adults forgive her before she apologized. She could abandon a job, damage a borrowed car, insult someone at dinner, or forget an important birthday. And Mom would explain that she was sensitive, ambitious, overwhelmed, or misunderstood. When I made one mistake, it became proof that something was wrong with my character. At 22, I earned a degree in forensic accounting and began investigating financial irregularities at nonprofit organizations. I spent my workdays tracing fake vendors, inflated invoices, missing grants, and charitable funds diverted toward private lifestyles. I was good at identifying patterns because I had grown up inside one. Madison entered luxury real estate after dropping out of college. Her social media showed rooftop dinners, designer clothes, hotel suites, expensive cars, and carefully staged success. It did not show that Mom paid her phone bill, Dad covered her insurance, and I handled every emergency that followed when their accounts ran low. The requests started small. Dad needed a water heater. Mom needed a short-term loan before a charity gala. Madison needed money for a real estate licensing fee. Each time, Mom promised repayment and framed any hesitation as selfishness. "You're the stable one, Lucy. You don't have children, you earn more. Family helps family." By 27, I had become the invisible financial structure beneath their lives. I paid overdue property taxes, guaranteed the lease on Madison's luxury SUV, and organized the bookkeeping for Mom's nonprofit, the Heritage Women Foundation. I also opened an emergency business credit line after Mom promised it would be restricted to legitimate foundation events. My fiancé, Caleb Brooks, was the first person to ask why every family crisis ended with my bank account. Caleb was an architect who restored historic buildings. He never ordered me to cut off my family or pretended I was always right. He asked careful questions and waited while I struggled to answer them. We met during an investigation into a mishandled library restoration grant, and 2 years later we were engaged. Caleb knew I helped my family, but even he did not know how much. I had never added it up because part of me still believed that if I became useful enough, Mom might eventually look at me the way she looked at Madison. The first warning arrived in early December when my banking app reported a $6,248 charge at a designer boutique in Washington, D.C. The purchase had been made using the emergency foundation card I had guaranteed. I called Mom immediately. She claimed the purchase was for donor relations, but when I asked which donor required a $6,000 handbag, she became defensive. "Not every relationship can be documented in a spreadsheet," she said. I reminded her that charitable spending had to be documented. She admitted she had used foundation money temporarily and promised to replace it after the next gala. When I demanded that she return the item, she accused me of caring more about rules than relationships and hung up. That evening, Caleb and I reviewed the account. The handbag was only the beginning. There was an expensive phone, payments to a private jeweler, restaurant bills, a car detailing service, and a transfer marked brand consulting to a company registered in Madison's name. The total was nearly $20,000. Did your mother tell you about any of this? Caleb asked. I shook my head. Then stop looking at this like a daughter, he said. Look at it like an investigator. I started with transaction records. Every charge carried a timestamp, merchant code, location, and authorization trail. The designer purchase and electronics charge came from the card assigned to Mom. The jewelry payment had been split into 2 smaller transactions, likely to avoid an automatic review. The transfer to Madison's company interested me most. MW Signature Living LLC had invoiced the foundation for digital outreach and donor engagement. The invoice claimed Madison had produced a 6-week educational campaign for young women entering the workforce. I checked the foundation's website, newsletters, board reports, archived pages, and social media. No campaign existed. The document metadata showed that the invoice had been created on Mom's home computer 2 days after payment was issued. Madison was listed as the vendor, but the file author was Diane Walker, my mother. She had manufactured an invoice to transfer charity money to my sister. On December 10th, Madison posted a private story showing a velvet jewelry box with the caption, "Manifestation works when your mother understands luxury." She deleted it 20 minutes later, but I captured a screenshot. 2 days afterward, Mom announced that there would be no Christmas presents because our family supposedly needed to focus on gratitude. I looked at the jewelry invoice while rereading her message. Caleb found me after midnight with 3 monitors open and a legal pad covered in notes. You already know what happened, he said. I told him I knew only what the record suggested. He reminded me I did not need courtroom language with him. She bought Madison Christmas gifts with foundation money and credit tied to my name, I finally admitted. What are you going to do? He asked. I wanted to confront her immediately, but I knew how it would end. Madison would cry. Dad would request peace. Mom would accuse me of jealousy. And everyone would discuss my reaction instead of their actions. Caleb told me not to give them an emotional response they could use. Give them facts. The next morning, I requested all invoices, board approvals, vendor agreements, and reimbursements associated with the emergency card. The outside bookkeeper sounded nervous and explained that Mom had told staff those records were being handled internally by Madison. I learned Madison had been listed as a communications consultant since October and paid $4,000 per month. The contract required 2 board signatures, but only Mom's appeared. Madison had received $12,000 before the Christmas shopping even started. During that same quarter, the foundation had rejected 7 transportation and child care applications because it claimed funding was limited. One woman had requested $900 to repair the car she needed to reach work. Mom denied that request while spending nearly 7 times as much on Madison's handbag. At that moment, the excuse I had built around my mother finally collapsed. This was not ordinary parental favoritism. It was theft disguised as family loyalty. I continued digging and discovered that my parents' impressive Richmond home was not theirs. It was a furnished historic rental costing $8,000 per month. I had co-signed the lease after Dad claimed they needed temporary housing while selling their old property. But that house had never been listed. Rent was being covered through transfers from the foundation's administrative reserve and withdrawals from my personal credit line. I contacted the bank and learned that I could freeze the accounts, revoke cards, dispute personal expenses, and request a forensic review. I did not act immediately because I wanted enough evidence to prevent Mom from claiming a misunderstanding. I contacted Dr. Evelyn Ross, an ethics specialist and member of the foundation's board. I explained that I had identified restricted funds, unsupported vendor payments, and credit misuse totaling at least $38,000. She instructed me to preserve everything, prepare an encrypted audit package, and avoid using foundation email. 3 board members were traveling until December 26th, so she could not assemble the full committee before Christmas. I organized statements, invoices, metadata, lease documents, screenshots, messages, and a voice recording in which Mom said, "This foundation exists because of me. Madison's image supports mine. Don't create trouble over technical details." I scheduled the package to reach the board, outside counsel, the bank, and a guarantor protection team at 10:30 on Christmas morning, unless I can let it. "Why 10:30? Caleb asked. "Mom opens gifts at 10, I replied. "And if she gives Madison those items in front of you, then Christmas becomes the last day she controls the story." Christmas morning began with Mom acting like a woman in a commercial. She wore a cream cashmere dress and moved through the rented house carrying cinnamon coffee in gold-rimmed cups. A fire burned beneath the stone mantel. Music played softly. Madison had already positioned a phone tripod near the tree. Caleb and I arrived at 9:45 with a homemade breakfast casserole and a framed photograph for Dad. We had respected Mom's no gifts rule. Although I had quietly purchased practical items for 2 children sponsored by the Foundation's holiday program. Mom kissed Caleb on the cheek and gave me a quick inspection. "You wore black on Christmas. It's dark green." "Well, it photographs black." That was her first criticism of the day. Under normal circumstances, I would have spent the next hour wondering whether I should have changed. This time I simply handed her the casserole. Dad was sitting near the window. Thomas Walker had once filled every room he entered. As a hotel executive, he could resolve staff disputes, negotiate contracts, and calm furious guests without raising his voice. At Snort's home, however, he had gradually surrendered every decision to Mom. He hugged me and said, "Let's have a peaceful day." Peaceful was the word he used whenever he wanted me to absorb an injury quietly. Madison arrived 30 minutes late wearing a white fur-trimmed coat and carrying nothing. She walked directly to the tree, kissed Mom, and asked whether the lighting was good enough for video. I saw 3 large boxes behind the armchair. Mom noticed me looking. "Those are promotional samples." "From whom?" She smiled. "It's Christmas, Lucy. Try not to audit the decorations." At 10:15, Mom announced that she had changed her mind about gifts. "Only a few small things," she said. "Madison has had such a difficult year." Madison placed herself in front of the camera. Dad stared at the floor. Caleb sat beside me, his knee touching mine. The first box contained the iPhone. Madison screamed, hugged Mom, and immediately began describing its camera features to her viewers. The second box held the Bell handbag. I recognized the gold clasp from the boutique invoice. $6,248 purchased with a card connected to a charitable foundation. Madison pressed the bag against her chest. "Mom, this is insane. You deserve to look successful," Mom said. The third box was smaller. Inside was the diamond ring. Madison began crying. Mom cried with her. Dad gave a weak smile. The live stream comments moved rapidly across the screen. "Best mom ever. This family is goals. You deserve everything." I looked beneath the tree. There was nothing with my name on it. I had known what I would probably see. I had studied the receipts. I had prepared for the performance. Yet knowledge did not make the moment painless. For one dangerous second, I was 8 years old again, watching Madison open the art set I had asked for because Mom said she was more naturally creative. I was 16, working a weekend job while Madison received a car for improving one grade. I was 24, being told there was no money to celebrate my promotion while Mom financed Madison's birthday to Miami. The pain was not about receiving an object. It was the public declaration that one daughter deserved abundance, while the other existed to finance it. Madison turned the camera toward me. "Lucy, say hi. Aren't these amazing?" Mom's expression warned me to cooperate. I heard my own voice ask, "What about me?" The room changed immediately. Madison lowered the phone slightly. Dad looked toward the kitchen. Mom's face tightened. "What did you say?" she asked. "You told us there would be no gifts." Madison just opened an iPhone, a 6,000 bag, and a diamond ring. "What about me?" Mom laughed once sharply. "You cannot be serious. I'm asking a question. You're a grown woman. So is Madison. She needs support for her career. And I don't. You have a salary. You have Caleb. You've always been capable of taking care of yourself. That doesn't explain why you lied." Dad murmured. "Lucy, not today." I looked at him. "When would be better?" Mom stepped closer. "Do not ruin your sister's Christmas because you're jealous." "I'm not jealous of the gifts. I'm asking why they were purchased through the foundation. Madison's smile vanished. The live stream was still running. Mom glanced at the phone and then back at me. Turn that off. Madison reached for the screen, but comments were already appearing. What foundation? Wait, what does she mean? Is this charity money? Mom lowered her voice. You don't know what you're talking about. I know the handbag was charged to the emergency credit facility on December 7th. The phone was purchased 2 days later. The ring payment was split between the foundation card and a transfer to Madison's consulting company. Dad stood up. What consulting company? Mom ignored him. I continued. I know Madison received $12,000 for a campaign that never existed. I know the house rent is being paid from administrative reserves. I know you used the credit line I guaranteed after promising it was restricted to emergency event expenses. Stop. Mom said. Madison finally ended the live stream. Mom moved so close that I could smell her perfume. You came into my home on Christmas and accused me of stealing because your sister received gifts. This isn't your home. It's an $8,000 a month rental and I'm listed as guarantor. Her hand struck my face before I saw it rise. The sound silenced the room. My cheek burned. My head turned. Caleb stood instantly, but I raised one hand to stop him. I did not want Mom rewriting the scene as a confrontation between men. Dad whispered, Diane. That was all. He did not move toward me. He did not demand an apology. He did not even put down his coffee. Mom looked briefly shocked by what she had done, but pride arrived before remorse. You pushed me, she said. I touched my cheek and looked around the room. Madison held her diamond ring. Dad stood frozen. Mom waited for me to cry, shout, or beg. Instead, I opened my phone. The screen showed 10:29. 1 minute remained before the audit package was released. Mom saw the countdown but did not understand it. What are you doing? I'm making sure this is the last Christmas you buy with my silence. At 10:30 the screen changed. Package delivered to Executive Board, Outside Counsel, Credit Review, and Guarantor Protection Team. I pressed 3 additional buttons. All authorized cards were frozen. The automatic transfer covering the house lease was canceled. My guarantee on Madison's vehicle entered formal dispute review. Mom's phone began ringing before I lowered mine. The first call came from Dr. Evelyn Ross. Mom stared at the screen as though the name itself had betrayed her. She rejected the call. It rang again immediately. Then Dad's phone began vibrating. Madison's business account displayed a fraud review notification because the foundation had challenged the consulting payments. The dealership financing her luxury SUV sent an alert stating that the guarantor had disputed continued liability. The property management company emailed Mom requesting updated payment authorization for the January lease. Within 90 seconds, the room full of luxury gifts felt less like Christmas and more like a crime scene. Mom pointed at me. Undo it. No, you have no right. The credit is in my name. You gave us permission. I gave the foundation limited permission for documented emergency expenses. You used it for personal gifts, rent, Madison's fake consulting contract, restaurants, and image management. Madison stepped forward, still wearing the ring. My contract isn't fake. What work did you perform? I promoted the foundation. Show me one deliverable. I posted about women supporting women. You posted one photograph from the gala. The caption advertised your real estate listings. Her face flushed. That still brought attention. You were paid $4,000 a month. That was Mom's decision. Exactly. Dad sat down slowly. Diane, how much money are we talking about? Mom snapped. Do not interrogate me in front of them. The board is about to interrogate all of us, I said. His eyes moved toward me. All of us? The house lease lists you and Mom as occupants. Several reimbursements went through a joint account. Whether you knew where the money came from is something the board and outside counsel will determine. Dad went pale. For years, he had treated silence as neutrality.